So here's the deal, my neglectful dad and his wicked wife are trying to boot me out of the house I paid for just so they can hand it over to my spoiled, knocked-up half-sister. Why? Because her loser boyfriend ditched her and now she's got nowhere to go. And honestly, she's not much of anything to begin with. I'm a 32-year-old guy and my dad, who's 64, has always been stingy, self-absorbed, and rarely around. Lately though, he found out what I make and suddenly he's all about family values. Now he wants me out of my own damn place so his precious daughter can move in. Mila, she's 28 and apparently the light of his life, just found out she's pregnant. Big surprise there. This is the same girl who wants to be a model and run a half-baked OnlyFans account and yet somehow can't figure out how to find her own roof to sleep under. Now Dad's decided he's gonna fix everything. Surprise, surprise, I'm the solution. He thinks I should just hand over the keys and bankroll her because she screwed up her life. This coming from the same man who wanted nothing to do with me growing up. But ever since he caught wind of my new job, my house, and my paycheck, he's suddenly all sentimental, throwing around that we share the same blood nonsense. And no, I'm not thrilled with him constantly reminding me he's my father. It's worse when he tries to guilt me into building some kind of bond with his wife and her daughter. Technically, Mila is my half-sister, sure, but let's not pretend we grew up playing board games together. I was out of the picture way too early for that. Honestly? Thank God for that, because now that I know her, I'd be seriously let down if I ever looked up to her. Before anyone jumps in, let me just say this. I'm here to vent. That's it. I've got a lot on my chest, and maybe my take won't sit right with everyone, but this is me just getting it all out there. I've got thoughts, feelings, and opinions, and nowhere else to put them. So let's talk about Kaylee, Mila for short. She's about 5 years younger than me, and somehow she's become Dad's pride and joy. He acts like she walks on water. The truth? She's out there selling herself, getting around with all kinds of guys, and running a dead-end OnlyFans. Yet Dad still calls her his greatest accomplishment. You heard that right? I'm guessing he doesn't really know what she's doing. And I sure as hell ain't the one to break the news. Look, I'm not super uptight or anything. I've got my values though. I care about building a life, focusing on my career, and yeah, when I date, I try to take time to get to know someone for real. Sometimes things click, other times they don't, life happens. But I try not to jump into bed with just anyone. Call me old Malayand, but I'd rather wait for someone who actually means something. That stuff just grosses me out, man. But hey, that's my code. I'm not judging the world, just doing what feels right for me. Mila though? She couldn't be more different. She probably lost track of how many guys she's been with, and being in model doesn't exactly scream stability or safety. Some of the stuff you hear about what men do to women in that line of work? It's scary and honestly, it disgusts me. Then she posts all these racy photos and videos online to make see Mila, and the thing is, it's not even working. How do I know that? Well, this part's awkward. A buddy of mine told me. He met her once for drinks and apparently she texted him afterward asking if he wanted to have some fun. When he told me, I was already ticked off. But he swears he didn't know she was my sister at the time. I don't know if I buy it. Anyway, she even sent him the link to her page, and yeah, I saw it. It's real. She's always broke and begging Dad for money, so it's obvious she's not making bank from it. I've never asked her straight up about it, and I never ratted her out to Dad either. One time, I saw her take a call and then hop in a car with some old dude who handed her flowers before driving off. Later, she sneaked in through the window like some teenage rebel. I used to see this kind of stuff when I'd come home from college during holidays. Not sure if she's still up to those antics, but I don't want any part of that mess. I've worked hard for the job I have, and I'm proud of it. Finally, something's going right in my life. I didn't really grow up with my dad's new family. He shipped me off to boarding school every chance he got. But I've seen enough of Mila to say she's a spitting image of her mom, Alice. She's 58 now. Back in her heyday, she was a flight attendant and looked decent enough to attract men like my dad who couldn't keep it in his pants. These days though, Alice is what I'd call a budget version of a real housewife. Her face looks like it's been sculpted out of plastic and her nails are long enough to count as weapons. Still, she runs some kind of daycare in the neighborhood. Don't ask me how people trust her with their kids, I wouldn't. She looks like she'd scratch your eye out just for blinking wrong. Alice has a big mouth, always sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. She talks over everyone and stirs up drama just for the hell of it. And let's be honest, she's got more silicone than sincerity. She's fake through and through. And unfortunately, she's got Dad wrapped around her creepy little fingers. I honestly believe she's the reason Dad shipped me off when I was just 8. She never wanted to raise a kid that wasn't her own, and he didn't hesitate to give me the boot. Now, let's talk about my father. He's the real root of the problem. This man thinks every decision he's made is automatically right just because he's got more years under his belt. He straight up told me once that he regrets having me because I turned out nothing like him. Honestly, thank God for that. My mom, she was the real deal. Strong, grounded, knew how to handle life and take care of people, including my dad when he actually deserved it. I'm pretty sure my dad was just as unbearable to my mom back then as he is to everyone now. They split up and got divorced not long after, maybe a few months later. I was only 4 years old when it all went down. Then, just 2 months after their divorce papers were signed, Dad rushed off and married Alice. When I turned 5, Mila was born. And not long after that, my mom, my real mom, was gone. She died in a car accident, and that day's been burned into my memory ever since. She was supposed to pick me up from school. Always on time, always dependable. But that day, she was late. Just 10 minutes, but for a little kid, it felt like forever. Turns out she got hit at an intersection by some drunk idiot. He survived, of course he did, and she didn't. He got a DUI a few years later, but it didn't bring her back. I was left alone, just sitting at school, waiting for someone who would never show. Took 2 hours before anyone came for me. What still stings the most? When my dad finally arrived, he looked more annoyed than anything. I remember him glancing over at Alice, face like stone, and asking what they were supposed to do with me. She shrugged and said, "Your kid, your problem." That line still echoes in my head. Well, guess what, Dad? Your kid, your problem. You don't get to dump your entitled daughter on me now like I'm the family backup plan. I've worked my tail off to build a decent life. Got a steady job and even run a few side businesses. I started hustling at 15 and haven't stopped since. After being tossed into boarding school at 8, I pretty much raised myself. Went to college, only came back for holidays. I've been on my own for a long time. Recently, after years of grinding, I finally bought a home. A real house, not some cramped shared apartment with noisy roommates. A place I could finally call mine. For a long time, that felt like an impossible dream, but I pulled it off. Moved in just last month. Even though I've got plenty of reasons to keep my distance from my so-called family, I figured I should at least show a little courtesy and invite them to the housewarming. Felt like the decent thing to do. Big mistake. My dad's face the whole evening? Pure jealousy, wrapped in fake smiles. He was asking all these weird questions about the furniture, the design, the layout. I gave him the basic rundown, and he came back with some bitter jab like, "Oh, wouldn't know. Nobody told me anything." He made a scene in front of my friends, even my coworkers. My boss was there, for crying out loud. It was awkward as hell. A week later, I'm at work dealing with a complicated project when I get a call from him. Says it's urgent and he wants to meet. I agree even though I already have a bad feeling. I get home and walk in to find Alice sitting stiff on the couch with that permanently angry face, and Mila looking like she just got done sobbing for hours. Red eyes, crossed arms, the whole thing. Dad's in the kitchen, casually grabbing beers like it's game night. He offers me one. I pass. No way, I'm dulling my senses for this. I ask him straight up what's going on, and he raises his eyebrows and throws a question back at me instead. Asks if I finally care about us. I'm confused, obviously. I don't know what he's talking about. He waves toward the living room and tells me to sit with Alice and Mila. So I do, across from them, keeping some space between us. Alice is rolling her eyes. Mila is sulking. Dad finally strolls in and joins them. He sets his beer on the table, leans back like he's about to give some big speech, then asks me if I'm blind. I just stare at him, not knowing where this is going. He goes on, saying that either I'm blind or I'm purposely ignoring what's right in front of me. He accuses me of getting arrogant ever since I bought the house, like I suddenly think I'm above everyone else. He says I'm ignoring the people who supposedly matter. I ask him calmly to be clear. What's the actual issue here? What's the serious situation he's talking about? That's when he glances at Mila. She sighs dramatically, then drops the news. She's pregnant. I mean, yeah, that's big news. I was just about to say congrats when she burst into tears. Alice wraps her arms around her like we're in some soap opera and turns to me like I've committed a crime. Says I should have known what was going on. That I should care more. Dad explains that the guy who got Mila pregnant dumped her the moment she told him. Alice says Mila is keeping the baby and that every decision from here on out should revolve around that fact. All I said was, can she afford it, and you'd think I'd slap them all in the face. The way Mila and Alice looked at me, absolute murder in their eyes. But I wasn't being rude. I was genuinely concerned. I had already assumed they were gonna ask for money, and honestly, I was willing to help out a little. But then Dad sits next to me, pats my back like we're pals, and says something that still makes my blood boil. He tells me he's a good father to his girl and that maybe my mom didn't teach me how to be a proper brother, but real brothers, he says, would give their life to make their sister comfortable. Excuse me? You want me to die for someone I barely know who's treated me like crap? I kept my cool and asked him flat out, what exactly do you want from me? He smiled and patted my back again. That's my good boy, he said. And then the bomb dropped. You're giving your house to Kaylee. I froze. Then immediately said no. I'm not. He frowned and asked why not, like that was some shocking response. I told him I'm willing to help with money if that's what this is about. Heck, I even offered to let her stay in a room rent-free for a while. Then he stands up, voice rising, and starts yelling that what I'm saying is nonsense. To me it made perfect sense. But he wasn't listening. He insisted, not asked, insisted that I give her the entire house. And not just that, he wanted me to move out and go buy another place for myself. I tried to explain how she couldn't afford the bills or manage the place, especially not with a baby and no job. But Dad cut me off and said those responsibilities would be mine too. What? No. Absolutely not. I was furious inside, but I still tried to stay respectful. Didn't want to blow up. But man, it took everything in me not to lose it right then and there. So I stood up, looked my dad in the eye, and told him flat out this wasn't happening. No way. Then I walked out. I thought that was the end of it, but of course it wasn't. A week later, while I was at work, he shows up at my house. I still don't know how he got in, maybe stole a spare key, maybe Mila had one, who knows. But when I pulled into the driveway that evening, I saw a couple of guys hauling boxes out of the house. My boxes. My stuff. I jumped out of the car and rushed up to ask them what the hell they were doing. They said the owner told them to toss the stuff out. Owner? I told them I'm the damn owner. Told them to put my things back in and leave now. I was furious, couldn't hold it in. I'd expected a lot from my dad, but not this. I stormed inside and found him there with Mila. Both standing like they were holding court, trying to act like I was the unreasonable one. Still going on about what a real brother should do. I told them to get out of my house. They didn't move. So I told them straight I'd call the cops if they didn't leave. That finally got them to back off. But they didn't go quietly. Nope. They hurled insults, swore at me, called me selfish, and worse. Right around that time, Mila called me. She said she wanted to talk. I agreed but told her I didn't feel comfortable meeting at my place, not after what happened. So we picked a neutral spot, a coffee shop. She showed up, but she didn't walk in like her usual self. Normally she's got this snarky, too proud attitude, but this time she looked off. Quiet. Uneasy. We grabbed a corner table and sat down. She told me she'd just gotten dumped. I said, yeah, I kind of figured. Dad had mentioned her boyfriend bailed when he found out about the pregnancy. But Mila shook her head. That's what Dad thinks, she said. I blinked. So, what really happened? She took a breath and said that the breakup wasn't because the guy couldn't commit, it was her who had commitment issues. That caught me off guard. She told me she genuinely cared about the guy, but he'd found out some stuff about her a few days before she told him she was pregnant. When they met to talk about it, she didn't even get a chance. She jumped in first, trying to explain, and that just made him explode. Apparently, he punched a hole in the wall. Freaked her out. Said he wanted nothing to do with her and stormed off. She's been trying to call him ever since, but he won't answer. Only texted once, saying he'll talk, but only after she gets rid of the kid. Yeah, that part hit hard. I mean, Mila isn't exactly a role model, but that guy? Not a fan. I gently asked her what it was that he'd found out. She looked down and said it'd be weird to tell me. I figured she meant the model stuff or the OnlyFans account, so I told her it was okay. She didn't have to say it out loud if she wasn't ready. But before I could steer the conversation, she took a deep breath and said there was more I didn't know. She started opening up. Really opening up. Told me she'd made some terrible choices. That deep down, all she ever wanted to do was paint. Become an artist. But Alice told her that was a pipe dream. No money in art, she said. Told Mila the better plan was to find a man. Fast. Mila said when she turned 19, older men started noticing her. It made her uncomfortable at first. But when she told Alice, her mom told her it was a good thing. Said older guys had money. They knew what to do with it. Alice told her that college wouldn't lead to a comfortable life, but her youth could. So Mila gave up on art and decided she wanted to try modeling. Went to agency after agency, but no one gave her a shot. Then she met this guy in his 40s. Said he could help her out. Bought her nice dresses, jewelry, took her to parties. She thought he was investing in her career. But her first gig ended up being a night with a man. Sold under the promise of a modeling opportunity. She figured it was just dinner. It wasn't. After that night, she got a small gig, photos for a small brand. But then it was more men. More broken promises. More manipulation. Eventually, she found out that the guy who'd helped her was really just selling her. She didn't confront him, was too scared. Thought he might actually hurt her. Kill her even. So she told him she didn't want to model anymore. Said she was okay doing low-wage work. Surprisingly, he let her walk away. She told me she's been waiting tables at bars since then. Said it's been tough. And yeah, I wanted to say welcome to real life, Mila. That's what hard-earned money looks like. But I didn't. I just sat there, taking it all in. Mila went on to tell me that even when she tried to clean up her act, Alice made her feel like dirt for it. Apparently, Alice would constantly humiliate her for working simple, minimum-wage jobs. Told her that women are meant to be admired, not to serve coffee or mop floors. According to her, women were supposed to be delicate, pretty things, decorative. Something to shine, smile, and be taken care of. So Mila started going out with men again, only this time just for dinner. She charged them for the company. Said there were a lot of lonely guys who just wanted someone to talk to. But of course, that came with its own mess. Some of those men turned obsessive, thinking they were owed more than a meal and conversation. That's when Mila told me she figured that talking to men made them feel too attached. More dangerous than just sleeping with them and walking away. So she got into full-time modeling. It worked, until a friend mentioned the all-the-vans, as she calls them. So she tried that too. Started posting content online, but quickly realized it wasn't as easy as she thought. She wasn't good at handling cameras, not very outgoing, and the whole thing was more work than she'd expected. It flopped. Then came the guy she considered her boyfriend. They'd worked together in the past, he used to be a barista, and they reconnected. She really liked him, but he was clingy, controlling, and didn't trust her. And honestly, with good reason. Because while she was dating him, she was still modeling and posting online without telling him. Eventually, she stopped everything and started depending on him. He didn't have much, but she was okay with the small life. Alice, of course, was not. Then she got pregnant, and everything unraveled. The boyfriend found out about her past, and worse, he found out there were multiple guys who could be the father. She told me there's a short list of men who give her money every month, each thinking they're the only one. One even proposed to her. She knows they're all lying to themselves, and so is she. But she doesn't correct them because the money helps. And she said she told me all this because she couldn't tell Dad. Apparently, Dad still believes she was doing light modeling gigs and had one guy who bailed when things got hard. Alice knows more of the truth, and her bright idea? She thinks Mila should marry the guy who proposed and just let him think the baby's his. But Mila says she doesn't want to live a lie. She also says the guy's weird, old, and she doesn't want to be trapped in a marriage she doesn't believe in. I asked her, straight up, what she wanted from me. She said she needed some financial help, and she wanted me to patch things up with Dad. Then she hit me with that plan again. Agree to what Dad's asking, move out for a while, let them use the house and just come back when things cool down. Seriously? That's the solution? I told her, as respectfully as I could, that I wasn't okay with that. I could help with a bit of money if she was really in a bad spot, but I wasn't about to hand over my house. She didn't take that well. She said I was selfish. Said she opened up her whole life to me and I didn't even have the decency to help her out. That Dad was right about me all along. That I should have been dumped in an orphanage instead of being taken in when I needed help. Then she stormed out. Now I'm sitting here, wondering, was that selfish of me? I don't feel like I overreacted. But hearing her whole story did mess with my head. I believe she was being honest. But does that mean I should just do what she asked? Is her pain enough to justify her demands? Do I trust her? Should I even be trying? After that talk with Mila, I got a call from Dad. He said he wanted to meet up and clear the air. Said to meet him at a bar. Curious where it was going, I agreed. We sat at the counter, and after a bit of small talk, he cut to it. Said he knew exactly how much money I was making now. I asked him why that mattered. He told me flat out, since I'm financially stable, I could easily buy another house in a few years. I just shook my head. Told him, Dad, I already have a house, and this conversation needs to stop. But he wasn't done. He went on about how I don't have a family yet, and how it's harder for women to raise a child alone. Said the baby needed a stable home. I reminded him that Mila has been living with them for years, and everything seemed fine. A baby wouldn't change much. Plus, she needs support, not isolation in a big house all by herself. Then he dropped another bomb. He said he and Alice would move in with her in my house. I just sat there, stunned. Before I could even wrap my head around it, the bartender, who'd been quiet the whole time, let out this dry, sarcastic laugh. Dad whipped his head toward him and asked what was so funny. The bartender said one word, Mila. Dad asked him if he knew who he was talking about. He nodded. I was her boyfriend. My eyes widened. So this was the guy? Dad's face turned red. He clenched his fists and glared at him, demanding to know why he'd walk away from starting a family. The guy held his hands up, calm as anything, said he wasn't responsible for any family, and he sure wasn't gonna raise a kid that wasn't his. Dad snapped at him, asking him what made him so sure it wasn't his. Then came the hammer. I had a vasectomy last year. The air just went still. He said he didn't want kids. Ever. And when Mila told him she was pregnant, he knew it wasn't his. Said he'd caught her leaving with different men, even though she'd lie about where she was going. He even found out she had an on the vance, as he put it. He wanted to believe her, wanted to think the kid was his. But when she came clean, he walked out, and that was it. As I sat there, watching this whole thing unfold, I saw Dad's expression slowly shift, from anger, to shock, to this heavy, disappointed silence. And me? I just sat there listening, not even surprised anymore. Trent, yeah, let's just call him that, shrugged and said he didn't owe Mila a damn thing. In fact, she owed him time, honesty, and at the very least some actual love. He looked my dad in the eye and said, I don't know if you knew any of this, but no father in the world would be proud of a daughter living like that. Dad didn't say a word, just tightened his jaw, stood up from his stool, and walked out of the bar in silence. Later that evening, he sent me a text. Said he had to go pick Alice up from yoga class. Didn't say anything about what happened back at the bar, but I knew he was stewing over it. And sure enough, the next day, there was a knock at my door. Mila standing there, crying her eyes out. She was a mess. I pulled her inside before the neighbors could see anything and sat her down, trying to calm her down. She was furious. Said I ruined everything. I told her the truth. I didn't say a single word to Dad. Her boyfriend, well, ex-boyfriend now, was the bartender at the bar Dad dragged me to. That's how it all came out. She broke down even more and said that after he came home from meeting me, Dad confronted her. Told her he was disgusted, that he couldn't believe what she'd been doing. Said she needed to drop everything, stay home, and fix her life. Find a good man. But then he said something that cut deep. He told her that her chances of landing a decent guy were probably gone. I listened to all of it, then hugged her. She apologized for blaming me. Said she assumed it was me because Dad came home and immediately laid into her. I forgave her. She left soon after. While she was venting, she said something weird. Mentioned that Alice stayed very quiet when Dad started preaching about good women and loyalty. I asked what she meant, and she just shook her head and said, she can't say anything, because she is yoga. I frowned. She's yoga? Mila just kept crying and moved on in her story. But that line? She is yoga? It stuck with me. Like a puzzle piece that doesn't quite fit until it does. Hey y'all, probably the last one from me. I know it's been a week, so just 2 days after my last post, I went to meet Dad again. I'd made a decision. I told him that I was willing to help raise Mila's kid, that she could move into one of the rooms in my house. I'd chip in for diapers and baby supplies, but she needed to get a job soon. Dad looked at me a little softer than usual. Said that if she worked, then there'd be no one to stay home with the baby. So I suggested she find some kind of remote work, freelance, maybe something online. He didn't bite back this time. Instead, he paused, let out this long sigh, then sat on the couch and looked tired, older than I'd seen him before. He said, I always thought you hated me. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. But I asked him why he thought that. He said, because your mom hated me too. I shook my head. Told him she never said a single bad thing about him. She used to say he loved me, that he did care. And the truth? I was disappointed in him, not because of what Mom said, but because she made me believe he was better than he really was. He rubbed his eyes and said he hated himself for a lot of things. He told me that he liked my mom, maybe even loved her, but they hadn't known each other long enough to be sure if they were really a match. He said she got pregnant with me and that's why he married her. She was good to him. Kind, strong. But he never felt the spark. Then he met Alice. And right then I felt a chill run down my spine. He said Alice lit something in him he didn't even know existed. That she made him feel alive. And before he knew it, he'd caught real feelings. Then she got pregnant. He said he told Alice it was wrong, they shouldn't have done it, but it was too late. She was already expecting. He wanted to break the news to Mom himself, but Alice didn't wait. She came to the house and told Mom everything. Mom confronted Dad and he admitted to it. It was bad. She was heartbroken but still held herself with grace. She asked for a divorce. That was it. That's why they split. My parents divorced because Dad cheated with Alice. And got her pregnant. After that, Dad told me he spent about a year being happy with Alice. Then Mom died. And suddenly he had to bring me home. Alice hated it. She didn't like that I was there, that Dad might show me attention or care. She thought he'd start favoring me out of guilt. So, 3 years later, he sent me off to boarding school. I never stayed long enough to bother Alice again. Dad looked at me and said, love makes you do stupid things. And let me tell you, I wanted to punch him right then and there. But I didn't. I turned to the doorway and saw Alice standing there, holding her water bottle. She said, I'm leaving for yoga, put her bottle on the table, and walked into the kitchen. I froze. Couldn't think straight. Then she walked back out and left the house. I stood there, watching her. Then something clicked. I grabbed her water bottle and followed her. She drove off and I tailed her quietly. She parked outside a yoga studio. Got out. Looked around. Then walked into an alley. Again, she glanced over her shoulder, paranoid, maybe? Then she got into another car. She hugged the driver. Kissed him. They drove off. I stood there, jaw clenched, heart pounding. I parked, walked into the yoga club, and asked the front desk if Alice had checked in. They told me they couldn't share any personal info. But they didn't need to. I already knew. I told the lady at the yoga club that I was worried about Alice and I just wanted to confirm if she'd checked in. She looked me straight in the eyes and said they didn't have a client by that name. I walked back to my car, sat there with my thoughts, and then something in me snapped. When that same car from the other night pulled up, I grabbed my phone and started recording. A man stepped out, opened the passenger door, and Alice got out, laughing like she just had the time of her life. He hugged her, kissed her, and smacked her, but as she walked toward the parking lot like she didn't have a care in the world. So much for yoga, huh? I didn't stick around. I didn't need to see more. Here I was, processing the fact that my dad cheated on my mom and now karma had caught up to him. He was the one getting played. He called me a few times after that, but I ignored them. Right now, all I wanted was to show up, look Alice in the eyes, and ask her straight what the hell was going on. I picked a time when Dad wasn't home. Mila was passed out in her room. Alice was in the kitchen making pasta. I walked in and casually asked, so, you got yoga class today? She smiled and said, of course. I go every day, even Sundays. I nodded. Who's your instructor? She tossed out some random name. Is that a guy? I asked. She laughed. No. Why would I take a male instructor? I smiled. That's funny, 'cause the club you go to? They don't have any female instructors. Her hands stopped moving. The spoon in the sauce just floated. She tried to recover. You must be mistaken. I told her I joined the same club yesterday. That's what they told me. She froze. How do you even know where my club is? I shrugged. I followed you the last time I visited. She dropped the spoon. I picked it up and handed it back to her. What are you getting at? She asked, trying to keep calm. I told her what I saw. She denied it, of course. I said I saw it with my own eyes, Alice. Still, she rolled her eyes and said Dad would never believe me. That's when I pulled out my phone, played the video, and said he'll believe his own eyes, though. She just stared, speechless. Then, as if nothing had happened, she turned back to the stove and said, "Doesn't matter now." I was already planning for a way out anyway. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. She looked over her shoulder, then turned back to the pot and said that the guy she meets outside the yoga club? Yeah, he's been her lover for 3 years. They had a history, apparently. They fell in love years ago, but he was married back then. His wife's dad owned the company he worked at, so the stakes were high. So, they agreed he'd stay married for a while, sort his finances out, then divorce and be with her. But then Alice got pregnant. She said she panicked. Needed someone locked in to help her. That's when she went back to my dad. They were still seeing each other off and on, but the moment she got pregnant, she told Dad he had to do something about it. Dad hesitated, got cold feet. So she took matters into her own hands. That's when she went to my mom and spilled everything. And now? Her lover's a widower. Owns his own company. She said she's ready. She's good to go. Then she looked at me, smiled, and said, "Women have to do what they can, kid." But right as she turned to FL Mila, that fake smile again, it faded. Fast. I turned around. There stood Dad in the doorway. Fists clenched. Face red. Eyes bloodshot. He was shaking. I didn't say a word. He stormed off and came back a few minutes later with Mila. He asked her, "Who's your real father?" Mila looked over at Alice, then back at Dad. She just said, "I don't care about blood. You're the only father I've ever known." He ran his hands through his hair, started pacing. Over the next 2 days, he made his decision. He asked both Alice and Mila to leave. Divorce papers are already in motion. Last I heard, they're staying at some shelter. Dad's been asking me to help him find a therapist. He's apologized to me more in the last week than in my entire life combined. And every time I forgive him. As for Alice, her lover didn't take her in. He denies ever having anything to do with her. Now she's begging me not to release the video. Says I should think of Mila. Of the baby. But honestly, all I can think of is that old line they used when I was a kid. Your kid, your problem.